What joke made by your players has become a staple of your campaigns for ages to come? Let us know in the comments below. The players enter a tavern or inn or something, and you do the thing where you describe some of the patrons. You finish by mentioning a heavily cloaked stranger, hunched over the bar with tally marks carved into the bar top and the wall next to him. You really emphasize how nobody looks at this guy or interacts with him, and you keep shooting sideways glances at him. You mention that the guy's drink is untouched. Eventually, someone from the party starts sniffing around this guy, and you make sure to inform them. He does not acknowledge you. He remains silent and unmoved. He seems to be ignoring you. The member of the party will then touch, push, or otherwise physically interact with this character, and the guy will tip over and clatter to the floor, revealing an old brown mop stabbed into a bag of straw under a heavy old cloak. The entire bar starts laughing at the stupid adventurers, and the bartender comes over and carves another tally mark into the wall before serving everyone a free drink. It's a great way to break the ice and get people's RP muscles warmed up. I had an inn in the first town they ever visited that had a typical fantasy-themed name, something named after a local lord from generations ago. But during the game, I couldn't remember it offhand. I was combing through my notes for it when my most impatient player blurted out, "It's Howard Johnson's! It's not that important! Let's just move on!" And the name stuck for the rest of the sessions in that town. So, from then on, I put a Howard Johnson's in every town with a big corporate headquarters in the Empire capital. I also took a little inspiration from Peppa Pig's Mrs. Rabbit and American Dad's Roger, and made the innkeeper at every single location the same NPC. I never told the players it was the same guy, but I always read the exact same description and gave him the same effect and mannerisms. At the corporate headquarters, they met a secretary who was the same NPC, who then led them to the office of the CEO, also the same NPC. There was even one city that had 2 Howard Johnsons, as my players tried to book rooms at both locations simultaneously, only to meet the same NPC at both. The twist I came up with was that he was going to be the party warlock's patron, keeping tabs on his charge. But the campaign died out before I could make the reveal. You come to a fork in the road. I pick it up! This led the party to a plot hook involving some paladins, as the DM decided to just roll with it and described the fork as being adorned with the crest of a nearby order. Now I try to use it every time we come to a fork in the road that seems plot relevant. When one player kept showing up with his PC mini unpainted, even though in session 0 we agreed to use painted minis, the DM said, "I can do 100 men in a night. You could at least do 1. The DM had also played Warhammer and had become skilled at painting quickly. "I can do 100 men in a night" pretty much became the DM's catchphrase whenever the bard or anyone else tried to seduce anything. "Hey, you know what I can do? 100 men in a night." A nat 1 causes the character to queef, or as we affectionately call it, front poot. And orcs speak like pro wrestlers, saying, "Brother!" in damn near every sentence, including their dying words. It all started out as joking banter, but eventually just became canon lore. "I'm dying, brother!" I know this great place. No matter where that character went, he always knew an excellent dive bar with dodgy individuals. He was a pilot in a Star Wars game. Different planets, space stations, it didn't matter. He knew a great place. I took the criminal contact background for my bard. My criminal contact is Hod-Toward. He'll fork over info, but immediately after, he'll try to sell members of the party a game called Rimsky. And we buy it. Or nearly buy it. Every damn time. And it's always missing like a piece or two, too, I bet. Our only weakness is plants. This was said because the only time the party seemed to have problems was when there were plants in the description. Not just plant monsters, but even when non-plant monsters used plants in their bedrolls. Right, so, session 1 of a 3-year campaign. I introduced the quest giver NPC, who would later turn out to be the villain of another campaign. So you all start in a tavern. I introduced the NPC as Katherine, and I kid you not, one of the players stands up and goes, "No, actually, her name's going to be Tavern." So yeah, her name is and has been canonically Tavern for the past 3 years. Even during the whole part when they investigated her, even when they fought her, even now in the epilogue and in the follow-up adventure I'm writing, she's still Tavern, owner of the Adventurers Guild. In almost every town, the party has encountered or at least heard of a guard called Benjamin. He's now become a world NPC who always winds up in the wrong place at the wrong time. After each crisis, he moves his family to a new city, which just so happens to become the party's next destination. I have a plan for him to show up at the final fight, Tyranny of Dragons, by pure happenstance, and he'll come in clutch should they need it. Tripping on the invisible armor someone left lying around started out as one of those Nat 1 moments. I don't remember exactly what for, so let's just say sneaking around the armory. Then it happened again when a player was chasing someone. It evolved into a running joke. The best part, though, was watching the movie If with my family. My youngest, who plays with our group, and I were tripping and rolling on that. My players tricked a group of bandits into falling into their own pit trap, and the bugbear NPC they had befriended peed on them as a throwaway gag. Then the druid asked if it was flammable due to the barrels of whiskey the bugbear had drunk in a previous room. So now, Clarg the bugbear pees napalm. When I was narrating a room once, I used the term alcove. Well, one of my players was unfamiliar with the term and incredulously asked, "What's an alcove?" The rest of us chuckled at their utter confusion, in good fun, we weren't cruel, don't worry, and had to explain it. Somehow, it became a running gag in our group that if anyone ever used the term, somebody would pipe up and loudly demand to know what an alcove was. Eventually, the phrase, "What the fuck is an alcove?" became a catch-all response for when anyone was confused or unclear on something being described. Now, I can't use the word without derailing the conversation for 10 whole minutes. We have a unique character in our group who talks out of turn on purpose and is supposed to be an annoyingly, slightly offensive PC to all we encounter. Don't worry, this was agreed upon by the whole group. It's honestly hilarious, and we all have a catchphrase we say anytime he talks shit. "He does not speak for us." We had a moment talking to a tyrant in a cult in the campaign, and our lovely jokester chimed in with, "Suck my cloaca, bitch!" They're playing a Kenku. We replied with joy in unison, "This time he does speak for us! All of us! Suck the cloaca, bitch!" I encourage joke characters when they're discussed with the group and agreed upon. They make serious moments even better sometimes and help break the tension during heavy topics, such as enslavement. I'm in a campaign that's part 2 of a previous one. It's the same homebrew world, but in different locations with a 7-year gap. Different characters, obviously. In part 1, there was a minotaur player who came from a tribe that followed giants. I played a half-elf, and another PC was a gnome. The minotaur had an extreme disgust for milk. He was bewildered that milk was a staple in people's diets because, well, to him, it was something only babies drank. Since then, milk has become a huge inside joke, and it even carried over into part 2. My new character, an owlin, ordered a breakfast meal. I think it was oatmeal or pancakes, I can't remember. The server asked, "Do you want milk in it?" And the whole table, including me, started panicking because we're the same players from part 1. It got even funnier when the player who played the Minotaur started talking in his old Minotaur voice as if he were suddenly there. Subconsciously, we've made our characters dislike milk out of respect for the Minotaur. In the same Part 1 campaign, we also had an inside joke about egg. The DM was playing an NPC goblin healer who ordered breakfast, and when asked what they wanted to eat, the goblin just softly and quickly said, "Egg!" It hasn't come up much in Part 2, but it's still a big inside joke to us. The first adventure had the party traveling by boat to a nearby island to explore a dungeon there. Before boarding, however, they read in the news that the infamous serial killer, John Boon, had broken out of prison. Fast forward a bit, and it was discovered that Boon was actually hitching a ride on the ship the party was on. Since Boon was a werehorse, he had snuck aboard the ship's stables unnoticed by the city guards. The party got into a fight with Boon and defeated him, leading to his eventual arrest once the ship arrived at the island. My original intention was to make Boon a one-off encounter to make the boat ride more engaging. However, the players began bragging about being the ones to catch Boon at every opportunity. They started theorizing that Boon was the true mastermind behind every evil thing they encountered. It didn't help that I later had a fire break out at the prison, which convinced the party that Boon had escaped again. They never actually checked though, because the prison was under lockdown, and they had other priorities. I don't have plans to reintroduce Boon to the campaign since the party already has an arch-nemesis, but it might actually be funny if I make him the big bad evil guy all along. Pardon my French became Pardon my Geoff when I asked the character, "Oh, where's France on the map?" We laughed for 10 minutes when he basically threw a dart at a map of the Flammable and randomly pointed to a country called Geoff. Now anyone from Geoff has a French accent. Another Geoff joke happened when a character was asked by a guardsman, "From where do you hail?" He said, "I come from Geoff, sir." The guardsman replied, frustrated, "Geoff who? What do you mean you're from Geoff? I asked from where you hailed, not from whose balls you hail." It wasn't even that funny of a joke, but we were laughing our asses off again. It's just such an absurd name for a country. It keeps coming up as a joke. Every Minotaur, living or dead, has some piece of modern designer clothing. Players decided that a skeleton Minotaur, which showed up in the final wave of a battle to protect the city from waves of undead, just happened to have a pair of pristine designer boots, huge and ill-fitting on its skeletal hooves. It knocked down the Blood Hunter, but an NPC cleric happened to get the last hit on the Minotaur in a panic. The party gave the kid the humongous boots in honor of him saving the Blood Hunter. My players, along with some input from me, recently ended up with the phrase, "And then we turned the ship around to pick him up." Basically, our female barbarian was going nuts being on a ship for so long, and if anyone bothered her, she would often end up throwing them overboard. Now the phrase pops up often. Turns out one of the sailors has a crush on her. Aww. One group would only refer to charisma as chorizo. My current group jokes that whenever we enter a city, it's always raining. It wasn't necessarily true when they first made the joke, but it's absolutely true now. It just so happens to be raining every time they enter a city. I was the forever DM of the group for a while until my friend decided to run a campaign for the first time. One of his friends who had never played D&D before joined us for it. Months later, that campaign ended and it was my turn to DM again. In the first session, during the first combat encounter, the new guy's squishy warlock got practically instantly KO'd. And he said, "Wow, so this is what a real campaign is like." He meant no ill will by it, of course, but obviously our friend took some offense. Now, whenever his characters get knocked down, we always go, "Wow, this is what a real campaign is like." Hey everybody, Brian Von VA checking in after the vid. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, ring that bell, and of course let us know in the comments below. What joke made by your players has become a staple of your campaigns? And of course, if you ever want to support the channel, join our membership program. You get early access to videos, and the pleasure of knowing you actually can feed us the eggs that we desire. Those expensive little buggers. We love you all. Please be safe, happy, and healthy. We will see you next time. Toodaloo for now.